great architect Christopher Wren aimed at eternity in designing London's churches. In rare cases, architecture aspires to that end. But how does great architecture originate and get there? For Wallace Harrison, the Fish Church began with a search for what he called the essence of architecture and a more modest goal of creating a place for worship using new materials and new construction methods to advance architecture just one more step. Finding the Fish Church's essence or central idea in the centuries-old Gothic cathedral, clear and honest in its structure and splendid with its colored light, Harrison and his collaborators created a modern masterpiece known around the world and on track to become a cherished legacy for generations to come. Here's that story.
The First Presbyterian Church was prominent for a century in Stamford's slowly evolving downtown. First, with its mid-19th century traditional church replaced in 1883 by a much larger Romanesque revival building with the town's tallest spire. But following World War II, the landlocked site proved inadequate to serve its baby-booming congregation, and no available parking led to church leaders to relocate outside downtown in 1952 for a roomier campus on the eve of Stamford's urban renewal. The building committee first favored a colonial revival church, the most common form of architectural expression in New England for suburban religious campuses at the time, envisioning a bright interior with clear natural light. But the committee paused on this direction when one of its members, enthusiastic about worshiping in a modern space during a visit to the Midwest, opened the committee's mind to change course and interview Wallace K. Harrison, the architect of groundbreaking modern structures such as Rockefeller Center, the Trilon and Perisphere at the 1939 World's Fair, and the United Nations campus in New York City. Harrison's buildings were then better known than his name, even though he had never designed a church and explained that he had no preconceived idea of its design and would need half a year to think about it. He so impressed the committee that he was awarded the commission. He set off to Europe for inspiration, revisiting the 700-year-old Sainte-Chapelle in Paris, a royal chapel that had impressed him in his youth. Renowned for the extent of its stained glass reaching almost to the sky, the architect was taken by how the intense blue medieval glass produced in Chartres colored the interior, and admired how the ambitious primary structure of slender piers and vault ribs exposed on the interior carried the space to soaring heights. He had found the essence of his one and only church, a modern house of worship abstracted from the principles of Gothic architecture, which he explained to the building committee by asking them a question. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to live inside a giant sapphire? Although Harrison's design evolved over the next 6 years, its essence remained unchanged. Many architects expressed divine presence with natural light after World War II, but Harrison's use of colored dalle de verre slab glass introduced the French technique to the United States and was highly unusual in its extent and composition. Illuminated glass brought biblical events to life for congregants in Gothic cathedrals. Harrison continues this traditional narrative role in the sanctuary glass, updating it by abstracting its stories into fragmented symbols for a literate 20th century congregation capable of filling in the missing details. Harrison also recognizes the narrative role of the elaborately carved portals of Gothic cathedrals in the front entrance, where the sculptural hood suggests both crucifixion and resurrection in a single form. As a 20th century architect, Harrison embraced new building technologies boldly during a period of unprecedented change, while appreciating the aspirations of Gothic cathedral builders, who strove over generations to reach greater heights by refining and reducing the weight of structural systems. The architect channeled the innovative essence of Gothic structure using pointed triangular thin shell precast panels, folded and tilted against each other and braced by interior ribs. Harrison pays homage to the pointed Gothic arch, suggesting it without curves on the building's end wall. But the angular profile of the building viewed from the street resulted more from practical considerations. One of the first buildings to engage acoustical engineers in its design, the sanctuary was shaped like a megaphone to project sound from the pulpit and organ out to the congregation. Harrison's imaginative integration of structure, acoustics, and Gothic-infused structure and aesthetics yielded a significant work of religious architecture. Looking more like a large sculpture than a building, its profile suggested an early Christian symbol, earning it the nickname the Fish Church for a puzzled public who had never seen anything like it. Harrison never protested the name, but a fish was not his intent. The emotional difference between the anxiety of the sanctuary's angular asymmetrical exterior and the calm majesty of its luminous interior may have had deeper meaning for its architect, who declared the First Presbyterian to be the most satisfying job of his career. Can it have been an anguished prayer for peace by a man who had served in both of the century's devastating wars?